Expecting Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, we are, I believe.
So she's Good morning.
Morning.
We don't have to start the meeting just yet, but I'm going to start the recording, so just making everyone aware.
I think we'll just give it another minute because we are expecting at least one other councillor. I was just waiting for Councillor Rise to reappear, and then I think perhaps we should start. Well, it's 3 minutes past, so I think we'll start the meeting. Good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Rosemary Hobbs from Mold Valley. I'm substituting for Councillor Tilling from Elmbridge, who isn't available today. And can I pass over to Jenny, please, for any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, Councillor Ashley Tilling has apologies for today, and he's going to be subbed by Councillor Alex Batchelor. We've also had apologies from Councillor Natalie Bramhall from Surrey County Council, and we've had apologies from Richard Parkinson as well.
And do we have substitutes?
No further substitutes.
I saw Marisa Heath's name appear, but she's no longer on the call.
I think she was a tentative. I've not heard if she's coming or not, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. So first of all, do we agree that they're a correct record? I think am I the only person who, I think I'm the only councillor who was present if Councillor Rise hasn't reappeared. And I was happy with them. Perhaps if any of the officers have anything to raise. Okay, well, I think they can be agreed. So any matters arising from the minutes? I do have something for, it would be for Amy. In the minutes, we were told new street sweeper vehicles were ordered in June, and these are from Mole Valley and Elmbridge. So I just wanted to know whether those are now operational. I'm not sure who can answer that.
Do you want me to answer that, Paul?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so hi, Chair. I'm Darren Kenny. I'm the new account manager here for Amy. We have 5 of the little sweepers that have arrived and are in circulation. We're waiting for the 2 big sweepers to arrive, and I believe they'll be coming in November. But the 5 little sweepers are here, and I think, Joe, I sent you the email to look at disposing of the old sweepers that we have that they've replaced. So they are in circulation.
Thank you. I expect the other issues I have will come up in the agenda. So, Morgan, did you have anything to raise from the minutes?
No, thank you, Rosemary.
Okay, thank you. So, declaration of interest. Does any member have a disclosable pecuniary interest in respect of this agenda? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item 4, which is the quarterly performance report. Is that you, Joe?
No, that's me today, Councillor. Thank you. Let me just set up.
Kingsley. Okay, thank you.
Hopefully you can all see that. So yes, this is the performance report for Q1 2024 to 2025. First slide is rolling tonnage up to June 24 compared to June 23. So we can see for all material has gone up for 1.7%. The non-joint contractors areas have gone kind of stable. For the contract areas, Mole Valley and Surrey Heath have followed the pattern, but Woking has gone down, while Elmbridge are stable. DMR, everyone followed the pattern. It's a decrease. Food, it was stable. The only people not following is Mole Valley with a slight increase and Woking with a decrease. Garden was an increase, and that was across the board apart from Woking, but Woking was stable. Residual was also an increase. That was mostly across the board, Elmbridge being stable, Mole Valley and Woking experiencing decreases. Recycling rates. So this is first table on the top is the quarterly one, but this is just for Q1, and the bottom table is the 12-month rolling up to June of 24 compared to June of 23. Confusing myself there. So you can see most of the recycling rates are either stable, as in very similar, or there is a slight change, but it's less than 1%. So we wouldn't really be worried about that. And some have had increases. So for the quarterly one, All of Surrey is what we call stable. Elmbridge was a slight decrease. Mole Valley was stable. Surrey Heath, a slight increase but stable, and Woking a slight decrease. But the 12-month rolling one, Surrey was stable. Elmbridge was stable. Mole Valley was a slight increase. Surrey Heath was stable, and Woking was stable, slight decrease but stable. The next few slides are just comparing Q1 of this year to Q1 of last year of each of the main material types. So DMR saw decreases across the board. Food saw increases for Elmbridge and Mole Valley, and then decreases for Surrey Heath and Woking. Garden saw increases for Mole Valley and Surrey Heath, and decreases for Elmbridge and Woking. And residuals saw increases for Elmbridge, Mole Valley. Surrey Heath and Woking were slight decreases. This is just comparing the partnership tonnage to the joint contract tonnage. Pattern usually follows, and it's the same for this quarter, and the trend is of decreasing for DMR. It's the same with food, slight decrease. The trend is following the same pattern. Green, it was always a bit sporadic, going down, but the pattern follows as normal. And residual, similar pattern, and the trend is a slight decrease. You can see it's kind of a little bit more horizontal compared to the others, but it's the same pattern. Next are the KPIs with Elmbridge. First, Elmbridge. So you can see that Elmbridge mostly met target for KPI 1. Did miss target for May, and the KPI 3 was considerably higher, and KPI 2 was quite high. Mole Valley mostly hit target. June, it missed target. This, I believe, was due to operational issues, and that's why KPI 3 is also affected from that. Sorry, Heath. So did hit target in met target in April, missed targets in May and June. I believe there were also operational issues there. And then the last slide for Woking, they all met target. There were some slight issues in June for KPI 3. That is it from me. If there are any questions, please do let me know.
So do we have any questions on those? I certainly have questions because the performance figures are really bad in Mole Valley, missing the KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
I would understand this if it were short term, but given that more recent figures show the same sort of pattern, what's the explanation for the continuation of this?
So I think from my point of view, there's been some issues that I've identified with a lot of agency personnel. We're in the process of getting full-time employees onboarded, so we have a stable workforce. We all know that agency personnel have no consideration to what the expectations is for us to deliver the stable service. So I've identified that we have got a large agency workforce there, and we're looking to bring them on, new people in full-time positions, so we can manage them for their performance on the contract. That's what I've identified at the moment. So
if you've got fairly new personnel, how long do you expect it to take to onboard these people? Because
I'm open to onboard them.
Going on for several months.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to get them onboarded by the end of October. It's just a typical waiting transition for them because agency staff are weekly paid, and it's a transition. Some of them who are transited over to monthly pay, and there's a process to get them onboarded with our HR department. But that I'm hoping to get everybody in place by the end of October. I've tasked the depot manager to try and make a push on that. I do believe we've had some vehicle issues and also third-party issues at the tip. I'm waiting around for the disposal sites, but that's something that we're going to be speaking to the local tipping facilities next week.
Okay, thank you. We have significant other issues, but I'll raise those later on. Any other questions? Thank you, Kingsley. So can we move on to
I did.
item 5?
I tried to put my hand up actually. Is that, I don't know if you saw it, but anyway, I've
Oh,
taken
I'm
it down
sorry,
again now.
I didn't.
It's all right.
I'm sorry.
My question was more
Carry on,
structural
Councillor
actually, and
Thatcher.
apologies for being naive and new to this, but the difference between the recycling rates of the best boroughs and the worst, which is clearly Elmbridge, it's about like 5 or 6%. And I was just wondering, for the, amassed wisdom in this group that I don't normally get to talk to, is there a good reason for that? Is there something that explains much of that, or is it just that the residents of Elmbridge are lazy and can't be bothered?
Well, Surrey Heath have always been number one, so they have always been number one in the history of I've been working here. It is so. I think it's many factors. Joe can back me up on this. I think it's due to sometimes changes in services. It's also due to the demographic. Garden waste is a big factor. I would say Surrey Heath have more garden waste tonnage than Elmbridge. But that's. Do you not think that, Joe?
I mean, I think there's, like Kingsley said, there's definitely a combination of factors. I think when you look at how you're calculating that rate, you've got obviously all the different material types contributing to that. So they all play their own part in what the percentages that spits out at the end. So in Surrey Heath, their service changes when they switched to fortnightly refuse and introduced food waste was, a lot of the Surrey authorities did that in around the same sort of time period. So our services are all well established. I think Surrey Heath have a slightly different mix on what they can collect in their recycling bins. There's a slightly wider range of materials that can go into the recycling bins in Surrey Heath compared to the other areas. That's going to play a small part, although it's a lot of light materials. So, they're not filling it up with recyclable bricks and things. It's not going to swing it massively. They have a smaller standard bin size, residual bin size in Surrey Heath. So automatically that's sort of going to encourage people to look at minimising the residual waste that they produce. Certainly compared to Elmbridge, where I think the 240 has been a standard for a very long time. It's not different anywhere else, but historically there had been larger bin sizes available in Elmbridge for longer as well for residual waste. There are actually more garden waste customers in Elmbridge than any of the three areas. So whilst that contributes a high volume of tonnage, that is obviously also playing a part in the total volume waste of your collected. So it isn't entirely a sort of positive contributing factor when you're calculating the percentage.
Just on that, so the one thing we don't seem to do is also do it per resident, because of course I think we're the largest of these 4 boroughs and quite a bit bigger in terms of population certainly than a couple of the other. So it sometimes, do we ever do it on a kind of I don't know, per person per household adjusted basis, just to get a sense, because that might be quite revealing. I was just thinking more for myself, my education. Apologies,
absolutely.
Wasting everyone else's time.
No, and also always happy to answer any questions on this at any other point in time as well. So within the reports pack that you've got, there's a dashboard that Kingsley produces as part of his report for each area, and there's a total waste recycling figure of kilograms per person. I think it is in that one, isn't it? I'm just trying to scroll to the right page. So that gives you an indication for each of the areas. It's on each of the separate dashboards as a sort of comparator there of what those figures look like, and again it's tracked back over the last couple of years, and there's one for each area, so you'll be able to look at those and make that comparison there. But Kingsley tends to pull a few high level bits out for his slides.
Genuinely appreciate. Sorry for everyone else having to wait while I get educated, but thank you. I'll hand you back to Councillor Hobbs, who can steer us in the right direction.
Thank you very much. That's an interesting question that yes, I'm also interested in that. And our DMR figures overall in Mole Valley had reduced slightly, and it's always interesting to know whether you can cast any light on that.
So was the DMR issue for this time, was that due to the operational? Because I remember Agogo mentioning that could have been an effect of that. I think that's more of a short-term thing than a long-term thing with Mole Valley's DMR.
Okay, thank you. I sort of assumed that it went along with the performance issue. Thank you. Right, any other questions? I can't see any hands up, so can we move on to item 5, please?
Item 5, Darren, is the Amy improvement plan update, so that is you, I believe.
Okay, I'll just sort my presentation. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So obviously, we're going to go through the key headlines, health and safety updates, service updates, and any of the improvements plans updates as part of this presentation. So the key headlines is, as you can see, we've had a number of challenges in the quarter, which has obviously resulted in a decline in the service. We've had obviously new posts recruited for the depots, as in the managers and fitters. Myself and Ian are now in place. Mark Porter is in place. The two transport managers are now in post, and obviously we've got the commercial manager Anthony in post. The task force team have been brought in, and they've sort of tried to stabilise the performance of the contract and implement an improvement plan, which is going to be shown before. Myself, Ian, and Mark Porter come with a wealth of experience within the waste industry, and the new transport managers are now hitting the ground running with trying to get our vehicles back on the road. Health and safety. So from our point of view, health and safety, the LTIs and RIDDORs are going down on a downward trend. We had 8 incidents last month. However, and they were all non-lost time injuries. 3 of them obviously were investigated, and they were found not to be non-work related injuries. A lot of the injuries are sprains and strains, and we've identified that we will be getting trainers for manual handling on pristine conditions, and that will be scheduled in for us in the next coming months. So we will have we'll have more trainers here on the contract, so that will help and reduce accidents. Obviously the new management team, we're going to obviously try and get the increase of close calls and the feedback, and try and get to reduce the accidents that occur. Waste collection KPIs, as you can see, Elmbridge was of course largely third party related. We've obviously had absence and vehicle related issues for both waste and street cleansing. Mole Valley, although it was improving, there was several challenges with third party impact, vehicle reliability, and the resource absence, and obviously we've had new people in there as well. Surrey Heath has been an increase with the mist collections, but it's not due to the garden waste rounds. Woking suffered a little bit of a tip closure in June, and we had to divert DMR to an alternative disposal point, as well as major road effects affecting some collection times. So the improvement plan, so we've got the zero code for our health and safety. We've obviously got the EAP in here now. We've got Aviva GP Plus, where they can obviously have video consultations with their GP, which will hopefully help with them. Occupational health surveillance for all our employees to ensure that they are fit for work, and that should be in place. It's when a mobile activity comes to the depot, and does a health assessment on them. Route risk assessments, I've understood that we are trying to putting them on the Whitespace database, so they'll be able to have access to all the route risk assessments. Safety stands downs, we will be obviously going through that, and I'll be doing be visited twice a year. I think I've got a senior leader coming in October to do a safety stand down as well. The testing of business contingency plans, I think I'm up to speed with the BCP, and I need to review it and update it and send it across to JWS. I would like to do a test and put that in place and get that across. Garden waste, again, driving online payments to service renewals. We're 60% in progress in that. Subscriber identification of garden waste containers, we're 50% on that. And the Power BI dashboard for Woking and Surrey Heath, we're 50% in progress of completing that. We've completed the automatic renewals notices, so that's all completed. We also need to identify low garden waste subscription areas and work jointly with JWS to drive the customer numbers up in them areas. I'd like to put a big push on that, on the 20%, because that's where we are, and we need to get the numbers up. Whitespace, there's a lot of issues that are going on with Whitespace. Obviously, container control, so we can utilise when the job comes in, that will come off the stock levels. So I'm hoping that will alleviate any stock and ensure that we always have a reliable stock level. I've done that before with a previous employer, and it actually worked. But what I want to do is just ensure that we've got an agreed figure with the JWS team, that how many is the minimum stock we need. Bearing in mind, most bin deliveries for new orders is on a 6 to 12 week lead time from suppliers. So we need to have that in place. SLAs to be assigned your working hours, we've got to try and sort that out. Nothing's been done about that. So I've got a bit of a task on with Whitespace. The KPI dashboard for invoicing agreed, and we're up to 50% with that. The non-domestic collections on for Schedule 2, we need to do a data cleanse in Whitespace to ensure that all the collections are grouped correctly and easily identifiable. So we're 50% of that. We've got the data cleanse on Whitespace to review the current assets, so no duplicate rounds are assigned. We obviously improve the quality of the data against communal properties. So that would be, I'd like to make sure that we've got parent and child properties assigned to them. Set up the litter bins on Whitespace for street cleansing. I think Surrey Heath has already begun. I've got the Whitespace team there currently. It's not on here, but I'm also implementing the leaf fall schedules that's going to be on Whitespace, and that should be done by the beginning of October. Review the cab usage for street cleansing, because we need to get that sorted out. I've identified that we're going to get some more training on Whitespace for them, so we are implementing new training regime for all the street cleansing teams on Whitespace. And the other thing, the last one is obviously refuse worksheets created automatically, so that's completed. So Whitespace improvement for refuse collection to be automatically generated following recycle being linked and contaminated. So that's what we've got on Whitespace. Operations, so optimization, route optimization in Woking and Surrey Heath, and the cross-boundary working. So hopefully this will, we've got a lot of the data in place. I believe one of the persons from the task force has put a lot of effort into that. And we will hopefully try and get that data across to JWS, so we can cross-reference and find out and iron out any issues regarding to that. So obviously KPI 3 is reviewing the methodology to see if we can help drive efficiency by removing miscollection vehicles in each borough. And review of KPI 4 and 5, which will ensure the data being captured correctly in line with the scope of the contract and agreements. Improving weight in textiles, we need to understand the lessons learned from a rollout of communal weight in textiles in Woking and Elmbridge to see if this is in scope. and follow the contract areas. Also look for alternatives for improving the wee and textiles and collected at the curbside. I'm not too sure how we can do that, but I'd like to see what I can think about on that. So fleet and maintenance is obviously a major impact for the service because obviously without the vehicles, it's a bit of a struggle to pick up the bins. So we've reviewed the current workshop shift patterns, and we are still identifying. I think we've interviewed over 30 mechanical fitters, but to no avail at the moment. I think we've recruited 2, and we've got 1 pending. Obviously, we've put a process in place to review the end of day defect process, and also we've had many meetings with third-party outlets that will allow us to do the servicing out of hours in the evening. We've got somebody in place, but it's at a fair distance, but we've looked at something local to the Surrey area. And hopefully we should have figures for that in the coming weeks. Looking at, obviously, we've got short-term hire, and we're looking to review the fleet and get the correct vehicles in on a long-term hire. And I believe the tyre provision of the contract, we've now got extensive tyre wall bandings on the tyres, which was having an impact on when we're sort of slowly driving alongside the curb. We've now put reinforced wall bandings on all the tyres, and we've gone through that process, and that's being complete. And that is it for me. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Darren. I think first point I'd make, and I understand you're relatively new. How long have you been doing this, Darren?
I started with on the 5th of August with Amy.
Okay. Yeah, because it would be really helpful to have that presentation in advance of the meeting, because it's quite complex. It's difficult to read on the screen, and it would let us digest the information and ask relevant questions.
Okay, apologies for that. I will make sure that it's sent across in time.
Now, have we got questions from any of the other members? In which case, I have several. Yes, so I've raised the issue of the KPIs in Mole Valley, which continue. So we've now had 4 months of really poor performance on collections and missed bins. Associated with that is the issue of the data. So you talk quite a bit about white space. Now, I couldn't pick up exactly where this came in your presentation, but the lack of accurate and timely communications means that our customer service unit is working harder than it has ever worked before, I think, answering queries about waste, because the data coming through to our system isn't up to date. So it's saying that bins have been collected when they haven't. There are cases where the bins on the even side of the road are being collected, but the odd numbers haven't been collected, and it's being closed off. So there are significant issues on this. So how long before we expect this to be sorted out?
Well, I'd love to give you a date, and I don't have an exact date, but I'll be working hard with the new depot manager down there, Carrie. But we have had meetings with her regarding the service levels. I wasn't aware of any white space issues, and from that point of view, but I can take that up with Lynn. I take it that's because people are just closing them off on the system. So maybe that's what the reason is. So again, I will identify what the problem is with the communication part and come back.
Thank you. Yes, it's not. It's also the opposite problem that they're not being closed off on occasions, which is causing calls. I have
Just on that, could I? Oh, sorry. Could I add one as well? It's
sorry,
very similar,
I was going to go back to Alex. So Alex.
Right. Don't worry, mine's actually very similar. The only bit, it's totally agree that what you want to do is only collect the bins that are being paid for services like garden waste. But I just have a longer memory perhaps than you do, and I think I know in Elmbridge we had a number of problems with garden waste collection where effectively we at one point couldn't find the drivers, therefore we managed to recruit some drivers, and well done for sorting that. But as a result, what happened, I think, was a lot of people weren't getting collections. They then went past the end of their renewal date because there wasn't any prospect of the service at the time. We didn't renew them properly. Then we decided we couldn't take on more people until we'd got the service kind of like re-established. And there's no one more annoyed than someone, weirdly, who's had his bill has been collected for free for a few weeks and then isn't getting collected, then goes on and pays for the service and then is kind of like intense. So I just think with some of those, there's definitely a link maybe between us and JWS and Amy that needs to be quite slick, because otherwise people have gone online to the bin collectors. They're going, well, it's not in our system. You're not a paid for kind of like customer. And they're like, brandishing their bits of paper showing that they've just paid for the service or whatever. So I think some of that we just need to be quite slick on. I totally agree. There may be a barcode or a QR code or something you can stick on a bin so you guys very quickly know and can check whether something is due for collection. I think it's a great idea, not against any of that, but it's just all of those services at the back end do need to be joined up. Otherwise, I can promise you, when it happened last time, suddenly my inbox is full.
No, okay, I take that on board. I will speak with Whitespace, and I do feel the pain of renewals, and it's quite difficult to manage because of that process and timeline going from customer to Whitespace. And barcodes, QR codes are potentially the future on bins. So maybe that's something we look at going forward.
Thank you, Darren and Alex. So, Joe?
Thanks, Councillor Hobbs. I just wanted to, I think, come in on a couple of bits, both sort of the response to your question and also on that garden waste piece a little bit as well, if that's okay. In terms of the performance issues, and appreciate, obviously, Darren, you are new to this and have had confirmed that you're dealing with conversations with Carrie. I think to clarify some of the issues on Whitespace, a lot of those have been raised as part of the end of day updates that we received, because we found those to not be complete, to not include all the areas or crew that haven't necessarily finished their rounds that day. So that feedback has been coming from myself or the team as part of those end of day updates exchanges, to try and sort of keep requesting that that clarity is provided, because those end of day updates are shared by us with the CSU team at Mole Valley and all the councils, so that our comms to residents can be as clear as possible on what's happened and what we understand to be the problems. In terms of restoring the service and getting it back to stability, as you know, with Martin, who was covering your position in the interim, that was something that had been discussed with him and that we had been advised would be supplied. So it is frustrating that at this point in time there still isn't sort of that plan to recover services and a date by which we expect that will be implemented, because it is something that's been discussed over a number of weeks between JWS and Amy, and at the board meeting a few weeks ago too. In terms of the garden waste, just for clarity, because the IT systems on both sides have changed over the last few years, we are in a position where the Elmbridge customer information does update directly into Whitespace as people renew. Elmbridge have moved to a single renewal date in the last couple of years, so all their renewals happen on 31st of March / 1st of April. Everyone's accounts start at the same time, unlike the other areas where they're rolling. And what we found this year was that there were a number of issues, even though that update's live in the system, with the information that crews had on their in-cabs. And what we, it was a mixed bag really of problems where sometimes people were getting a hanger saying that their bin wasn't out, which obviously is a bit tricky if your bin isn't out, when they did have an account, which was confusing people obviously. But I think there were also some issues in the back end around clarity on the in-cabs of the number of containers that people had. They were having one bin empty, but not the additional ones that they paid for at some point. So, you know, we identified a number of those problems and solved them. But I think when we get to that renewal period in Elmbridge next year, we need to make sure that all those processes are absolutely corrected, so that when the renewal, you know, it's not just the peak in renewals, it's all the renewals that happen at one point in time. Any of those problems that cropped up are all being addressed, and we make sure that all those sort of automated processes are absolutely working perfectly, because there were, you know, a range of problems, and they weren't all identical, but it caused a lot of issues in terms of frustrated customers.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Joe. Morgan, did you want to ask a question?
No, Joe thankfully has asked the questions that I was going to ask. I've clearly been asking Joe those questions enough that it's been seared into her mind. So thank you very much. I'm fine.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson, welcome.
Hello, good morning, thank you. I just had a question around Woking, actually. I think this is more of a personal question than the garden waste collections. You said it's not a single renewal date, it's a rolling date. I just wondered kind of about the data collection and collecting those customers. I know for myself, I moved house a number of years ago and then discovered actually I wasn't paying for my garden waste until kind of fairly recently. So it was one of those things that had obviously gone through the cracks, but it doesn't sound great, does it? A councillor not paying for the garden waste, but I kind of assume that actually if it happened to me, it happened to a number of other people in Woking. And I guess I'm looking for some kind of surety that the systems in Woking are better at managing the garden waste customers. I don't know if you can answer that or whether I need a follow-up email.
I will have to come back to you on that, and I'll chase up with our white space team, because yes, you're quite right, it shouldn't be happening. Because people are getting that service for free and we're losing revenue for yourselves and for us. But I will take that on board and go back to our white space and find out what the reissues are with regards to the renewals.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. I'm the new portfolio holder for the kind of waste management at Woking. I literally picked it up last week, so I will have lots of questions for you as I kind of find my way through this new portfolio.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Shona, can I pass over to you?
Thank you. Yes, and I'm not going to take very long on this, but I just wanted to reiterate Councillor Hobbs and Joe's points about the recovery plan. I was the person who sent the letter on behalf of the partnership to Amy colleagues about the recovery plan. The reason why we keep labouring the point, and I'm sure you get this, Darren, I'm sure you understand, is that it's the uncertainty about the performance and the ongoing lack of communication that we can share with residents, which is becoming a real issue. And it's coming to a head after 3 to 4 weeks of a significantly high number of problems in performance. And so we're getting lots and lots of calls into our customer services unit. Councillor Hobbs and her colleagues are getting lots of emails coming into them. It's creating a whole extra amount of work for us, but in a way that we aren't able to give any clarity or information that is useful to our residents. And I think that that's why I just want to kind of labour the point myself, just to make sure that it's really landing, that we're asking for the recovery plan, the what, the how and the when in particular, so that we can communicate clearly, because our residents are now starting to tell us that they are losing trust in what we are telling them. And that's a really difficult position for us to be in, because with more clarity and better communications about what and when and how, we may be able to allay some of the residents' concerns, and it will enable them to be patient with us. But at the moment, it's hard for them to be patient when they don't have any information. And we all as humans tend to fill the vacuum with the worst case scenario, which is this will never recover, and it will always be like this, and that's what we're starting to see. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that as the person who authored the letter,
No, that's fine.
to let
Thank
you know.
very much. So yeah, I believe Martin and Headley was obtaining and doing the recovery plan. I did have a conversation with him and asked him to send me what he had currently, because he's now obviously off with a broken leg. I got it late yesterday, so I will hopefully have a review of that and try and get that up to you by beginning of early next week, if that's okay.
That would be really helpful. We'd really, really appreciate that. And also just one last thing in the interim, where we do have tactical issues. So for example, in Dorking at the moment, there are 2 roads that are closed. We appreciate that that causes logistical issues for waste collection. I think what we would really like to do, and I know JWS, Amy and Thames Water are probably meeting today, I understand, to try and work that out, is again, that forward planning, or at least on the day that we hear that something's going to happen like that, with all of us collectively being able to put a communications plan out to the residents most affected, I think is going to save us so much effort in the long run. So we're getting lots of queries from West Street residents at the moment who are saying, we just don't understand. Do we put bins out? Do we not put them out? What is really happening?
Yeah.
And I think if we can agree something where we can make that clearer, and I'm saying collectively, I'm not just saying this is all down to Amy, but if we can figure that out and make that really clear, again, for those residents that are so badly affected by specific incidents and issues, I think that will also help us all in terms of that failure demand.
Yeah, I think I've identified and been through that before, and normally when you meet with the residents and with the people who are doing the service there, it's normally a sort of combined effort where just tell the residents to leave the bins out, and we will normally work with them to bring the bins down to that collection point that we've established. And if that is unachievable, normally we would go and say, well, the only alternative is maybe we do it on a Saturday collection and change their day for that time frame whilst the works are happening. So there is alternatives that we can look at to ensure that the residents get the correct message. But yeah, I'll take that on board. Thank you.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
But I'll just say, Shani, you're right, that I believe that meeting's happening or happened this morning with JWS, Amy and the contractor doing the works on site to try and get a sort of more robust plan to make sure that collections are more stable there while the works are still ongoing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shona and Joe and Darren. Shona's just covered the points I was going to raise on those roadworks, and we can't underestimate the bad publicity that this is causing, because this was all over social media, and residents just think the work isn't being done. Now, we've come back and said there will be communication with residents, so it really needs to be timely so that the residents do hear as soon as possible.
Appreciate that. No, understand.
Thank you. Now, do we have any other questions for Darren in particular? Thank you. Well, I think we can move on to item 6, and I think that's you, Joe, is it?
Yes, that's right. That's me. Thank you. With an update on the work programme for JWS team. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at the report. It summarises a few key areas of progress on our work programme in the cover paper, and then there's a more detailed annex of all the areas of work that we're looking to cover this year and some updates on those. But I'll pick up on a few along the way, just to summarise. So we've got a couple of pieces of work at the moment that are externally sort of funded by grants we've bid for and received. So that includes some work on the small electricals improvements, which most recently there's been some comms activity going on that. So postcards to residents that just remind them about the curbside service. But alongside that, we've got some trials of some alternative collection methods for communal sites that are in place too. And once those trials have been completed, we'll obviously be evaluating those to see whether we think that's an effective use of resource and way to collect going forward. We've also had some funding from Keep Britain Tidy for chewing gum cleaning in 3 of the areas. We have now completed all the funded work on that and put up the signage and done the comms that we've been required to do as part of that grant. So we're now into kind of an evaluation phase. We need to complete the first phase of that by the end of October and then follow up again with Keep Britain Tidy in the spring. But that's been really positively received in the areas where we've been doing that work, which is really nice. We have work in the work programme that's delivered by the Recycling Improvements team in JWS, and this includes at the moment planning for some more communal waste food rollouts in some of our areas, as well as trials of new food bin housing units. So that planning work is underway, and hopefully by the next time we meet we'll have some further updates on when that will be happening, if that hasn't already started. The team have also done some analysis and evaluation of some of the recent work they've done in Elmbridge with food waste collections, but also DMR in Mole Valley, and there's some really positive outcomes of those which are detailed in the report. The JWS operations team have managed over the summer to support a number of community events, some of those organised and managed by some of the housing associations that operate in our areas, which is a really positive chance for us to engage with some residents face to face and talk to them about their collection services. In terms of health and safety, we undertake a series of depot audits each year. And although we have some actions outstanding from the last ones, which have been impacted slightly because there's been obviously a change in management team and health and safety team at AME, those are still being followed through. And we've actually now undertaken 2 of the visits for this year. So once all 4 are completed, the team will produce a report and update those actions with any new or any changes that we've seen to address any of the ones from last year too. I think you'll see from a number of places in the report that some of our planned work has been impacted slightly for a couple of reasons. Obviously, we've already talked about there's been some disruption to services in some areas over the summer, and that's resulted in an increase in inquiries to the team and need for the team to undertake additional monitoring visits and site visits to try and help understand what issues residents are having. So that's obviously had to take priority in some cases. It's been compounded by the fact that we've had a couple of vacancies in the team over the summer too. Positively though, we've recruited 2 of those. We just have 1 more to fill. And having looked at the programme of work with Sarah and Ogogo, the managers of my team, we feel there's a really positive likelihood that we'll be able to kind of rescope and replan some of those activities and make sure they all still take place as far as possible within the current year. So hoping at the moment that won't have too many knock-on effects. So those are the highlights that I was just going to talk about, but I'm really happy to answer questions on any of the updates that are given in that report if you have any.
Thank you, Joe. I can't see any hands up. That's quite comprehensive, but you've actually reminded me of something else I wanted to ask Darren. if that's okay, can we go back to Darren? It's you mentioned the leaf fall,
Yeah.
and I didn't catch everything you said. So of course, what we're interested in is the timing of this so that we can communicate it to residents and preferably which areas are being done when. So is there anything you can tell us about this, please? Or perhaps you could repeat it because I didn't take it all in.
Yeah, so we're scheduled to have all the leafing schedules uploaded into Whitespace by the 7th of October because we want to look to start commencing the leaf schedules and collecting them on that date. I've literally sent an email today just chasing up the 6 extra sweepers that we're hiring in for the leaf fall to ensure that they will be here for the 7th, but I will keep the JWS team updated as and when that's happening. But yes, that's the sort of plan that we've got, and hopefully we can get that. And then, like I say, the leaf, with Whitespace, you'll be able to see when the roads are getting done on that daily basis, if that makes sense.
That will be a great improvement, because last year it ran, well, this year it ran well into this year in Mole Valley.
Yeah, so I've just had a confirmation from the white space, one of the white space operators for Amy. He's literally stated that he's done a couple of depots and he will have everything done before the 7th.
I think Councillor Hobbs, if I can just chip in as well, I think what we've learned from previous years that it will be really beneficial to have more information on our website, which may then be replicated elsewhere on authority websites where helpful, in terms of how the leafing programme works. I think what we will then have is because the leafing routes will be in white space, we'll have that visibility of how far the depots have got with those, and we'll be able to help update those leafing pages that I think we're going to have on the website with which areas have most recently been visited and which are still outstanding. So I don't think we can go into I'd be nervous about going into huge detail in terms of blow by blow accounts of which roads are due when, because we know it can shift with the schedules need to be a little bit flexible, because there might be some quite reactive things that we need to respond to if there's, for example, sort of slippery pavements near a school or something that are reported. But equally, if we can give greater visibility to residents on the areas we know have been done and the areas we still have to complete, that'll help give some clarity on what the progress looks like. And it's a work in progress, but once white space is there, that'll give us that ability to do more on the website.
And once it's done, Councillor, once it's done, it'll be there for the following years, if that makes sense, because it only needs to be done once. Okay. So we're doing it now for this year, and then they will be there for the next year.
Lovely. There is another issue there, and that's locations where there's a lot of on-street parking, and it seemed inefficient that teams were coming and then couldn't sweep because there were cars in the way, and had to come back to redo it. So is there a process of notifying the day before, or putting a sign up so that people are aware?
I don't know what the process is, and I do believe it's a letter drop, but we've spoken on meetings that we're going to have the as it specialist roads is what you're referring to, and we're going to have that information. Joe, I don't know, sorry.
No, we have so we've recently had a couple of meetings on street cleaning more generally, Councillor Hobbs, with Darren and some of his team, to talk about street cleaning, because there have been some issues primarily in Elmbridge and Mole Valley with concerns about the service there too. In terms of addressing sort of heavily parked roads, in Elmbridge there was a sort of historical approach that was inherited from a previous chapter, really, in terms of dealing with heavily parked roads. So we do have sort of the signs and leaflets ready to be used, which could be also adopted in Mole Valley too. We'd absolutely encourage that. What I don't think the Mole Valley Depot have in the same way is a sort of a substantial list of areas where those are, that they would wish to target that way. So that's something we need to pick up with them. But Darren and I have discussed having a very Mole Valley specific street cleaning meeting. We're just waiting for a date that we can all get together on that. That's absolutely one of the areas that I'd like to talk about, because it has been raised before that particularly some of the sort of commuter areas, maybe Leatherhead and some of the other town sort of outer roads that haven't got parking restrictions, that's a really positive approach to take to get a really thorough clean done on the occasion that everyone, the team can visit and get that dealt with in one go. So absolutely, that's something we want to implement, but it's not an approach that's been used in Mole Valley to date on this contract.
I think that would be a really helpful improvement, and I'm sure it's something that members in Mole Valley would contribute towards, because there are certain areas we know we'll get complaints about because the leaf fall builds up because there's regular parking, often near stations. Okay, any other excuse me, any other points for Joe? Thank you, Joe. We now need to move on to item 7, Excuse me. Now, item 7 is confidential, so I need to read out the exclusion clause that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of agenda item 8, as it involves the likely disclosure of exempted information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A, the Local Government Act 1972, which is information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding the information. So, Jenny,
agreed. Just to give you that confirmation, agreed.
thank you. So, Jenny, could you
I will
tell us
just
when we're...
put that in place if you just give me a few seconds.
Thank you.